Greetings, nerds. This is Scene a Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Paul. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well. Back on Thursday nights.
Yeah, we are. So I have something to tell you.
Yeah.
Kick us off. Because I had a long weekend, and I feel like it's been a month since we last talked. So
Definitely. Yeah.
it's very weird because I feel like I watched a lot of stuff because I actually returned to You in season 4 on Netflix because they dropped part B, but they dropped it the same weekend Glory part 2 came out, and I prioritized. Okay.
Yeah.
But I also watched it because I started. Well, no, I think I just saw the thumbnail for Double Toasted's review of part 4, and I had already watched their review of part 1, and Corey and I are like, we're on the complete same page about just like, what is this? And we are on the same page about part 2. It is crazy how good part 2 is. You're suddenly watching part 2, and I want to say within the first episode and a half, you're just like, okay, this is the show that I have come to know. This is Joe in his really mentally bizarre situation. It was weird how much I'm just like, okay, thank you for starting. I understand what they did. They did a very, not to give anything away, but they did a very well done magic trick, as we like to say, where they pull one over on you as a viewer. And, but then when you're watching part 2 and you're figuring it out, you're this like, all the signs were there in part 1. Why? But that's the testament to a pretty clever plan of how they want a story to be told and perceived by the viewer, especially when you're trying to have the perception through the eyes of one character. So it's a lot of first person. And I think that they use that. But yeah, I was just like, oh my God, thank you. Now, it's not as good overall, certainly, as season 2 and maybe even season 3, but I do think that it came back to its true form. But I'm just like, what are they going to do next? Like, we're seeing a pattern now.
Oh, yeah.
What happens?
Okay.
And I don't really know how much longer this show can go. I also don't know how, like, its viewership at all. But if people stepped away during part 1 and haven't returned, I hardly encourage you to return to it.
Yeah.
Just so that we get a season 5, because if we get a season 5, maybe we can have some official resolution to this whole saga that we've been on with Joe, because that we have seen different stories play out in Joe's whole thing, but we need some clear, like either he gotta go, but like I don't know how much longer they can do this for. I guess is my point at the end of the day. But yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I know. I saw that you had dropped, I guess, the same weekend as the Glory and stuff, and I know those are 2 shows that you are very, very into, and I saw.
Like, You is a guilty pleasure. You is like the equivalent to Cocaine Bear for you, okay? Like, I watch it and I don't know why I enjoy it, but I also hate watch it because it's some of the dialogue is so shit. and 90% of the characters are complete stereotypes and all of that. But they do some clever things in terms of, I guess, just like drama. I don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of it. I would say I'm your average viewer of it.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, yeah. Clearly, you had your priorities. The glory came first, so which I saw where it was. I think it was like Netflix is like top rated minutes watched the last week or so. I mean, it's just like doing gangbusters on that platform.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people like on YouTube. I see people reacting to K-dramas all the time, and The Glory was popping up there a lot. And a lot of people want to know, like, want to see how that ends, which I don't blame them because, yeah. But I checked out the season premiere of Ted Lasso.
Okay.
It's good. I don't know what hell I do know what they're doing, but I don't know. I don't know if Ted Lasso will ever be season 1 Ted Lasso.
Yeah, see, shows have a way of being like that. The Flash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. I don't have Apple, so I haven't been able to enjoy any of the shows on that platform, whether it's Ted Lasso or For All Mankind, which is one I definitely want to check out sometime.
Yeah, that's one that I have not checked out. But I have been watching Dear Edward on
and also
Apple.
Severance. Yeah.
Severance. Oh yeah, it's Severance. I binge Severance, so I kind of like forget about Severance. But I've been watching Dear Edward on it. And speaking about shows that are entering final seasons or have gotten over the years a bit like shaky, the trailer dropped for the 5th and final season of Mrs. Maisel, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I'm going to say all of her names in reverse order. That's how we're going to do that. And she's going to come back around April 17th, I believe.
That's right.
I am pretty sure I saw, and I'm blanking on his actor name, but I'm just going to call him Jess from Gilmore Girls. And people, I hope you know who I'm talking about. He's also Jack on This Is Us. What is his name? Oh my God. Yeah, I could have sworn I saw him, which would make sense because the same writers and producers of Gilmore Girls are also doing Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So
yeah, I know that show. It was starting to run on fumes for me by the end of last season. I know both you and my wife were like, y'all both filled me in on the finale because I think I had missed it, and I was like, okay. After y'all both gave me the description, I was like, I'm good. So.
Yeah, but that final episode, and it's funny because I saw randomly on YouTube the writer. The actress who plays Mrs. Maisel and the actor who plays Lenny talk about the pinnacle scene in that finale episode and how they did it, and why it was so important, and such an iconic moment for the show and for the character.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty interesting. I think they could have gone a bit deeper, but whatever. I just Midge and Lenny, like, I love their chemistry. That's the only reason why I watched the show.
Yeah, that was the thing that was keeping me around for season 4. But just like you said, their chemistry with Rachel Brosnahan and was it Luke Kirby?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I know it's Bruno Kirby's son. So, but yeah, they definitely have amazing chemistry. Speaking of shows on Amazon, I saw where one that we watched that I got that I recommended to you, The League of Their Own, was also renewed for a second, but abbreviated second season.
Right.
So fans are pushing hard for that show to get a full episode order. I think they're only going to do like maybe 5 or 6 episodes in the final season, but it was renewed.
At least we're getting like an epilogue, if you will. At least we're getting something, because it was a good enough show. And I mean, fans complain all they want, but they shouldn't be complaining to producers. They should be encouraging other people to go watch it. to get the viewership up. But, you know, I'm glad to hear that at least we're going to get, find where the characters should end.
Yeah.
I don't know if should is the right word, but on Amazon, no. Freaking Yellow Jackets. I don't know what it is about my algorithm right now. I've never watched a single episode of Yellow Jackets. I've heard a lot about it. And now I think it's either their second or third season trailer, like the 2-minute long trailer. I have heard multiple times over the last week. It's like haunting me. I'm like, I get it. I should watch the show, but I haven't even watched episode 1. And they're really pushing that show, which again, I've heard really good things about it. But
I agree. I've been getting a lot of that in my algorithm as well, and both my social and even on platforms. And it's just sort of like, okay, all right, I get it. I wanted to check this show out, and I like you, I've heard really really good things about it. But
a show that I think has not appeared in my algorithm since probably the trailer leading up to the first season is Titans, which we do have Titan news because we finally get the answer that we've wanted in terms of when will it return to complete this season, and when it will return with 2 episodes on April 13th. But that's not the kicker. The series, and Will, you're going to have to explain this to me, but the series finale of the show will then air on May 11th. So that's about a month in between.
Yeah, well, first, they'll return Thursday night release like always on HBO Max, and then they'll return with Part B with 2 episodes, and then the weekly drop until the finale ends on May 11th.
Oh, okay, I get it. It was just like oddly written. For me.
I just didn't add.
So the first 2 episodes of Part B will drop on April 13th.
Yep.
And then we'll get a weekly drop leading up to May 11th, which will be the end of the season as well as the series because it's had its time.
Everything, as part of the winding down of the prior DC TV, this was one of the victims. And but also, I think the series has run its course. I mean, I think I think overall, there's been some moments with this 4th season where I've been, up and down with it, but I think that once we got the sort of the climax of Part A of this current season, I was like, okay. But it and even Doom Patrol, which I love Doom Patrol, but I think it is starting to show some of its creative edges, worn a bit. So maybe it's a good time for both shows to end on high notes.
Yeah. You don't want to be a show that outstays its welcome, and I do believe Titans outstayed its welcome when it got renewed for season 2, which nobody should be shocked by that statement because y'all know how I feel about Titans.
Yeah.
But I feel like that first trailer was very well done on selling you on a show that never really happened. It just was like, okay, because people checked out Titans, and then over that first season, I think it lost a lot of its edge and never managed to fully come back to form. But I know you had one more piece of news that you want to talk about, but considering we are talking about DC, I think we should just jump right into Superman and Lois, and then we'll wrap up with some Disney and MCU stuff when we get into Mandalorian.
That sounds good.
Okay, so what were your thoughts about the 3rd season premiere and 2nd episode of Superman and Lois?
So I'm really enjoying this season so far, and these 2 episodes remind me of why I really like this show.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the super villains. It's about family and how you take a character like Superman, who is probably one of the most powerful beings in the universe, and make him relatable. And that was on full display with these first 2 episodes when they return. Now, this week's episode, I have to just say, I mean, it got me. Even though I saw, and we'll get into it in more detail, but even though I saw where they were going because of what transpired in the first episode, and as things were going on with Lois's test and everything, I don't know if it was just for my personal experience or what, but this one, it just really, really resonated with me to the point where I was like, damn it, I should have put a freaking trigger warning in this damn episode, because it got me. It really hit the emotional chord with me that I wasn't expecting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at any point in the first episode, did you think she was actually pregnant?
No.
Okay. But did you think it was cancer at any point in that first episode?
Not until I didn't think it was cancer till the second episode, and because the first episode I was like, okay, they may do some kind of comic book, I knew they would do a stupid like Flash time sickness kind of thing, because that's just not this show. It's more grounded. So I should have seen it coming, but at the end of the first episode, but. As Lois was having the biopsy done and things in the second episode, even though it was one of those things that I saw it coming, in the second episode, I think just how it all unfolded, and when the family had their talk, and I know I'm sort of jumping to the end here, but
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but it was just the performances and everything about it. And like I said, I just couldn't help but like, it resonated with me because, and I'm sure many of our listeners who've had relatives who've had cancer and stuff, it was it just brought back a lot of memories and conversations that I remember having with my dad and other things like that. And it just really hit me in a place where I just really, it just really hit me in a place where I just didn't really think it would with these typical, with the CW show.
Right.
I never, and I think that's and I think that's a testament to the writing and the quality of Superman and Lois, and why I like this show, and why I keep whenever when it's on, and I really, as long as they don't do any fuck around with the schedule, I can stay with it, because they do tell a great story with that show.
Oh, they're gonna totally fuck up the schedule.
Now with new administration, I hope not.
Oh God, Will, if you bring up new administration. Oh my God. That's your like go-to play whenever I'm like so I had for some reason I just had a sixth sense. The moment that she was told in the first episode, she's not actually, I don't even think it was that, because I'm trying to remember the first episode, and when Adam Man gets released, right? Mm-hmm. And then a Superman comes up, and then they have their battle, and Superman's like, how did he get released and everything? So when we're seeing like that teaser at the end with Mannheim and him, and he's like, they're injecting him for whatever reason, I was like, they're doing a cancer plot. And I bet Lois has cancer.
Yeah.
There was something about it, and I totally agree with you. It's in particular the first episode for me reminded me about why this show works well, and it's for everything you just said in terms of the family and the not focusing too much on set pieces and big action sequences, because it was weird how much it was just a family drama that was outplaying during majority of that first episode, and then you got a little bit of the superhero stuff at the end.
Yeah.
And now in the second episode, you're getting it interwoven, and we're actually getting to see the journalist Clark Kent.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Mr. Tag along. I forget to start the recorder with Lois Lane.
Yeah, that was great.
And so I'm glad that it worked for you, but this just means that I'm like.
Well, like I said, it could be just a very raw thing, and everybody comes at it different. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, if this episode didn't hit you that way, that there's something wrong with you or anything, or you're emotionally, you know, don't have the feels or whatever. It's just more, and maybe it's just more raw for me, and maybe that's why it.
Yeah.
Well, it was a couple things, because it was like, you know, as I mentioned, it's the family thing, and like the first episode with how you can tell the difference in production now that shows are able to have more intimate moments with characters, because as you notice in this episode, the first episode and the second episode, you're seeing Lois and Clark in bed and being more like a married couple and doing, you know, things, and so you know, now that some of the COVID protocols have been are not as strong on sets as they used to be.
Right.
So you know, so you had, so I you know, I was like, okay, the mistake, you know, I was like, so while the episode was going on, I was like, all right, you know, are they going to jump the shark here and add the third kid?
No.
But I was like, but no, that goes against, you know, comic book canon, and or even alternate universe, you know, comic book canon. I don't think they ever had a third child, and
they got their second child redux already happening. Yeah. You don't want to add another kid to that. And then it's just a weird dynamic, because you have a baby and teenagers and all of that. So I'm glad. In a way, I think it's good. It makes sense for this show, out of every incarnation of Superman that we've seen, to do the cancer thing.
Yeah.
Because they especially, and we've talked about this since the first episode, Lois is so prominent in this show. And I think that that's why it's, I mean, you would think that they would, the Kent family with Superman as the dad would be a patriarchy.
Yeah.
But no, it's a matriarchy. Like Lois runs that shit.
Yeah, she does. She runs
that shit. So, and the boys listen to her. So it's very interesting to put her in a vulnerable state. Yeah. And it makes sense, because I thought it was a good like human issue to offset something that Mannheim says to Clark or Superman. He actually technically says it to Superman in the second episode, that I thought was like an excellent point, is that all he does is just puts out fires. Yes, he saves people. But Mannheim is saying is, but you don't change anything. Like you put away the bad guys, but have you changed the system? And I don't think Clark has ever thought about it in all the years he's been doing it. Like, he's never really thought about it through that lens, and it rattles him.
Yep, it did.
And then he goes and finds out, like, he can't put out this fire that is going to threaten to take his wife away from him.
Yeah,
He can't cure cancer. At least I don't think Superman has that power, but
nope, he doesn't. And that was the thing that, again, that is the wild card that was super, you know, that I think makes this show work. You know, one, the cancer thing, but I'm really glad you brought up about Bruno Mannheim bringing up Clark putting out the fires, and you know, and you came to my community, and you know, because Clark, you know, even Superman even tells him, look, I did things here to help your people out, you know. So, but Mannheim was like, but you're right, he had the counterpoint. You just put out a fire, I built community. And
maybe it's just because I don't know that much about the character itself or himself. I don't know. It's good that he said it, but I'm just like, okay, so what are you doing to affect change?
Yeah. Well, I think
an illegal gun arms dealer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he is head of Intergang. I mean, so there is that aspect of it. So, but I guess it's sort of like, and not to bring up Titans again, but and I know we're going to be getting Lex Luthor at some point in this third season of Superman and Lois as well. But he does name drop both Lex Luthor and Morgan Edge as far as like these rich guys who who do who builds up their communities and put on the facade of being a philanthropist and those kind of things. And I think Mannheim does the same thing. It just happens to be on the the side of the town where where it's more people of color live. So that because he was looking to those two individuals as his sort of inspiration to build up things, and and he uses Intergang to as far as his criminal empire, to do all these experiments that we saw in the lab there with Adam Man, and I guess Automatopoeia is his Intergang enforcer. So.
Okay, onomatopoeia. I was wondering, I'm like, somebody please give me a name for this.
Yeah.
I don't know what to got. Onomatopoeia. Got it. That's not going to trip me up like while we talk about the rest of the season. It's funny to go back to his references of the past big, well, Lex Luthor, I know we're finally going to get him, whatever. When he did those name drops, all I'm thinking is like, but you're not that much different. Like, yeah. I guess to your point, that's what he wants. That's what he's saying. Like, I looked at what they're doing. They're your biggest enemies, but to me, I'm inspired by them. I guess that makes sense. I just also left a little like name dropping those. All I could think was just like, yeah, seriously, writers. Like, are we going to get somebody different? Like a different type of character for Superman to go up against? Seriously?
Well, I think
we got that last season towards the end, but still, it's just funny.
Well, and that's the thing too, is to your point earlier about how the show deals with the family dynamics and all, because and not necessarily the action sequence, because the action stuff. I mean, usually the villains, and we've seen this, to your point, they have variations of Superman's power. I mean, like his brother Tall was like, was Superman on his Earth. He had with Bizarro, and so this show is not about that. Is this the action pieces are like, it's a superhero show, so we got to have them. But it really is getting, really gets its narrative, engine is really the family and the dynamics and the things, and like, dealing with now this latest crisis, with Lois and cancer, which is funny. I learned that this was an alternate story, alternate Earth, but Lois did have lung cancer actually in the comics.
Yeah. But I had a thought and then I forgot about it. But I feel like because of the experiments that he was doing on Adam Man, I feel like he is trying to get powers.
Yeah.
So to your point, I do see this going like down that trend of I want what you have.
Yeah, I don't think Intergang. I think it was more. He's more like the Kingpin. I think it was more like just the underworld, like.
But he's trying to weaponize it, like because that guy didn't have powers until he was released, and they were doing the experiments. So they're experimenting on how to get people powers. So maybe you're right. It's not that he himself, Mannheim, wants the powers. It's that he wants to be able to weaponize them. Mm-hmm. And have sellers buy them so that so that, yeah. And man, every time you mention Intergang, okay, guys, again, I have not officially, like, hand to God, watched Black Adam, but I pretty much have watched Black Adam because, man, the reviews, I know they were the enemy that Black Adam, quote unquote, faced up against, but he's an anti-hero. So every time I hear that, I just go right back there.
Yeah, I tried to get that far, but I just ended up like doing like you, just listen to reviews because I started watching it and yeah, I just didn't have.
Oh, the reviews are so funny with Black Adam and Shazam and all of that. But and so I'm like, why haven't the writers like well, they can't because comic galore, but whatever. Anyway. Speaking about family dynamics, okay? This show and yeah, family dynamics are always good. Mm-hmm. I do think though, just to be me, they work well when they're dealing with the adult relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was cringe.
Because even in these 2 episodes, all I could think, I have two options here. Like either A, the writers still don't really know what they want to do with the children, and by the children, I'm talking your Jordan, your Jonathan, your Nat, your Sarah. Mm-hmm. Or B, they were just like, okay, so we're going to have some pretty heavy adult drama happening. We're going to have some cool Easter eggs, build up for the mystery that's going on. And meanwhile, we have to seamlessly introduce this other actor to play one of the kids.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? Well, we kind of just act like it's so normal, give him very minimal scenes. He also was in a relationship that apparently is not happening, although singles got crossed, and I still don't really understand that, especially when he told her, I have a girlfriend, and I'm like, do you?
Yeah.
Do you? Don't understand. I also don't really, I get Jordan and Sarah broken up, but I don't know. I'm at a loss for what the writers are planning on doing with these kids.
Yeah, I agree. I did feel that the episode did come to a screeching halt whenever we were dealing with the kids this week in particular. And it's, because, and you're right, it is like hard. I don't know if it's like it's like, we're on the CW, we got teens, we got to have a teen angst, we got to have, like last week with Nat and the general, trying to get her into the DOD school. That stuff actually, those were good moments because it was a conflict, and it touches on how General Lane has always been awkward and with family relationships and stuff, and touching on the fact that in another Earth, he was her grandfather.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that beat, that plot, just as a reminder that she's from another Earth, and even though the characters have moved on from that, it is still like she's still trying to adjust to, and they did that a little bit in this episode too, where the guy who was hitting on her was kind of like, I've seen you before, but then you dropped out of school, because for a brief period of time they did leave and then they came back.
Right.
And now we of course got we got a little love square happening, because you have Chrissy and Kyle. Yep. And John Henry and Lana, which John Henry, I was still holding out for the Lois. I get it. It's Lois. But then you're going to swoop in on Lana. Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
It makes sense though. I mean, it's a small town. It's Smallville. It's in the name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a funny moment. I totally saw that with Chrissy and Cal coming. I was like, oh boy, they're gonna hook up. Whenever that birthday party was just like, okay, yeah. Speaking of Smallville, small town, it's just like the whole daggone town like shows up at their 16th birthday party. I'm like, okay, yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. The whole town and also Smallville is just jinxed. I
yeah.
mean, there was only 10 seasons of Smallville on the CW to just prove how jinxed this town is, because even though Lana is the mayor,
Mhm,
the previous mayor did something apparently with Mannheim,
mhm.
and now like there's an issue, and it's all connected back to John Henry,
Yep.
which another reason why this show works is because they are very aware of the loose ends that they have,
They are.
and they're picking good times to tie them together. And I think another reason why the adult stuff works so well is because it's very easy to tie and interconnect those plot points.
Hmm.
So it doesn't feel like an ABC story. With the kids, I think they struggle more
Yeah.
connecting that naturally to it without getting into the we're Riverdale all of a sudden,
Yeah. Yeah.
or Vampire Diaries. So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, any other points before we move on to the Mandalorian catch up?
No, no. Like I said, I'm really enjoying the first two episodes of this season, and I know they just wrapped filming for this third season, so hopefully uh, we'll have a strong season, and this won't be the last one, because I think the show definitely has another year or two left in it.
Yes. But it is good to hold that over the head, because then as a viewer, you're like, well, if it's last season, then yeah, Lois could die. But if it's not, Lois ain't going nowhere. um, and on that note, we're going to jump into Mandalorian. But before we do that, Will, you had a piece of news about the Disney Plus and
Yeah.
a certain show on it.
Yeah. So a couple quick notes. Today on the Hot Mic podcast with John Roca and Jeff Snyder, had Jeff drops a bunch of scoops on the show, and if you should definitely check it out. Not only for MCU and Star Wars and whatever, but other just films in general. But one really tasty note that he dropped today was that Deadpool 3 apparently is going to have Mobius and Miss Minutes, Owen Wilson and Tara Strong, show up in Deadpool 3 as part of I guess Deadpool is going to be getting wrapped around with the whole TVA from Loki. So that was a very, very big scoop, and I know I think there was a lot of discussion about it. We'll see if the trades confirm it, or if Disney will confirm it at some point. But yeah, that was some news from the MCU today.
They're going to confirm it around the same time that they confirmed that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were in Homecoming. Or not Homecoming, No Way Home.
No Way Home, yeah.
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 So,
or when they hire Victoria Alonso's replacement, but that's a story for another day.
do we have a date on Loki season 2?
I know it's still, as my understanding, that it's still supposed to come out this year.
God,
Later this year. I mean, I know they're pushing some things back, but I think Loki and Secret Invasion were still on the slate for 2023.
I want Loki season 2. I'm very happy about that news, by the way.
Yeah.
I saw it and I was like, yes, thank you. Deadpool, it's funny. I don't really remember the first movie. I remember watching the second movie and just being like, it's hilarious.
Yeah. Yep.
It's so funny. But I never returned to it I think there were a few scenes that I've rewatched on YouTube just randomly. but yeah, Miss Minutes, Mobius, like, yeah. I mean, just and then if you're gonna bring on them, just insert clip of Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even asking for Kang, like, or a variant. Just insert Jonathan Majors. Which, if anybody has watched Deadpool, that could actually happen.
That could happen, and that would be epic if we had Deadpool and Kang in a scene. Just one scene. That's all I need. I don't need. Yeah, even if it's a post credit, I just need that. Just 2 minutes.
I mean, he did have that recent interview where he was talking about, like, on the path to being the sexiest man alive because he keeps facing off against them. If I'm not mistaken, at one point in time, Ryan Reynolds was the sexiest man. Like, they could do a whole bit.
They could totally do. Yeah.
And if they do, I want some money residuals from that because
yes.
Totally my
idea. Bookmark it now. If we see that, I'm gonna be like, all right, Disney, pay my friend. I know a lawyer.
That you do. Oh my God. All right. So we wanted to bring up that topic now because we're going to deep dive into episodes 2, 3, and 4 of The Mandalorian. And to start us, I'm going to give you all my summary. My summary of the last 3 episodes of The Mandalorian. And it starts with what I call bath time. That is all I remember from that episode, and that's all you need to remember from that episode. And then we get into the second episode, which I have deemed Twilight Zone episode of Left Behind. So there is a scene in that episode which, for whatever reason, I immediately was like, oh my God, Left Behind. And it was when they were doing the train stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's something about it that was very the more that Pershing and what's the girl's name? Aaliyah?
Yeah.
Aaliyah, like, the more isolated it was just on them, and she's kind of leading him to do stuff to kind of break the rules. Mm-hmm. I know that that's not what Left Behind was about, but still, like, hey, there's a reason why the mall was shut down. Well, I know that there aren't any infected in there. There is. Anyway, it just gave me that vibe. And then last but not least, the best episode of the last 3, in my opinion. But it's just, I mean, I don't have to rename it. It's called Foundling. It's Foundling with Grogu and Bo-Katan. I mean, it's just like Grogu. Like, that's all you need. You just need a little precious Grogu.
Yeah, that's all you need. That's all you need. My summary of the last 3 episodes, and I'll start with episode 2, which is since you already took bath time, I have to do the other one. R5D4 finally gets his moment to shine. So
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's the droid, since Mando couldn't rebuild IG-11. He got from Peli R5D4, who was the droid that the Jawas first sold to Luke and Owen in A New Hope, and he blew his motivator allegedly. I think he and R2 had some things going on there, but he got his moments to shine, and finally in the Mandalorian. So that was obviously the bath was the big one, but you already took that one. So
yeah, that's really all I remember.
Yeah. Episode 3, the convert or the covenant. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was like, are we trying to be Andor?
Well, they were.
Yeah.
Because it's Pershing.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It's definitely we want to be Andor, but we're not.
Yeah, well, it was more, and not clearly the writing's not there, but I will say just the themes that with the exploration of the Empire and how corrupt and evil it was. We got that in Andor. Here with Mandalorian, it was how inefficient and how weak the New Republic is, and it's sort of like taking it to like the American Revolution, like after before we got the Constitution, we had Articles of Confederation, and it was a cluster, and that looks like the New Republic, and we've seen in like episodes 1, 2, and even in prior seasons of The Mandalorian, how weak and ineffectual the New Republic is. I mean, as far as like the patrols, they're like, Grief Karga's like whatever, and obviously even though they were like trying to prevent Pershing from using the tools of the Empire to help build a stronger infrastructure in both the core worlds and in the Outer Rim, they were fine using those tools to re-educate the people who were in the amnesty program. So it was just showing the hypocrisy of some of the issues with the New Republic. So that was some of the things I just wanted to throw out there about the third.
Yeah, no, I mean you're right. Like, and I think maybe that's why it not just that it featured Pershing so much, who's a character that we know from Andor, but it's also that Andor's purpose is to show the uprising right before New Hope, right? To show the cracks in what was happening at that time. And now we have the reverse, and that's why I stand fast on Twilight Zone, where now we're starting to see how is it that however many years later, the First Order is in power.
Yep.
And so you're starting to see like, yeah, they won, the Death Star blew up, but there was a power vacuum. And they did not do a good job about putting proper rules and governance in place to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself. And so I think that's what the purpose is, and why it's just weird. Just as much as you always bring up Book of Boba Fett featuring Mandalorian. It was unexpected for suddenly Mandalorian to be like, okay, guys, you can ooh and goo goo gaga about Grogu and Pedro Pascal, but we're also going to be doing some history fixing here.
Yep.
So don't mind us.
Yeah. I knew you brought that up before we started. Yeah. How that episode, how the series has sort of played out that this way, and it is definitely some plugging in some history, but also even thinking back to even tying Andor and Mon Mothma and Rebels and all the other shows that Filoni has had a part in. And thinking about the third episode, where they do start not only already mothballing the Empire's fleet, but they're also doing the same thing with the Alliance. So it definitely like opens, as you're right. I mean, there's that power vacuum because especially those Outer Rim worlds, like for example, Navarro, where Grief Karga now is like the independent governor out there. They're just going to like come up with ways to just police themselves, because bottom line, they can't depend on the core worlds to defend them. And there's no Jedi. Well, at this point, there's still not enough Jedi around to protect them. But we saw how that all went down in the Old Republic.
I listened to Kind of Funny review, and one of the panelists brought up a fascinating theory about Pershing. Have you heard this?
I have not.
The Pershing we see in that episode, do you think it was a clone of Pershing?
No, I think it was the real deal.
Okay. Because they pointed out, or they said something, and this is like way beyond me. And these people know what they're talking about, but they said in Andor, when we see Pershing, he's wearing a specific pin that says that shows that he's a clone.
I heard. Oh yeah, I think I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not from them, but I think I have heard about that. But I thought, but the thing is, the cloners, it was the Caminos, the Caminans, the people who did the clonings for. Because they were all wiped out.
I'm not bringing it up to have some kind of debate.
Yeah, no. I'm not debating you. I was just trying to. Bottom line, I think it was. I think he was not a clone. I mean, I think they were truly going for the allegory of like post World War II, with the after the Nazis, how Von Braun and others were brought here to the United States to help, for example, do the Apollo program and those kind of things. I think they were going more with that allegory than anything else, and that's why I think it was why they had Pershing there in the whole amnesty story.
Yeah, well, any which way.
Yeah,
it's still good. I mean, yeah. I was thrown off, but not. They did it. It was an odd curveball, but it was also a welcomed one, because I do think that if we had jumped right into foundling time, it would have felt too much of the same, because we've already spent a lot of time on that beach, and then every time we go back to the beach, it looks more and more like an awful set.
It's clear we're in the volume.
It's clear. It's like, oh, we're on the beach now, so they spent their money elsewhere. Got it. I get it.
Yep.
But what was your brief summary or brief synopsis of the 4th episode?
Well, I mean, it's the obvious one. Ahmad Best it has his redemption arc. Jar Jar. That was the night. I was happy for him. I mean, just to take it out of universe, given all the shit that he put up with Jar Jar Binks and stuff. Bringing his YouTube Star Wars Jedi Temple challenge character into canon, I thought was a nice little touch. Yeah, it was. I mean, I knew none of it while I was watching the show, but I heard all about it and was like, oh, that's cool. Apparently, this is one of those. I heard, I remember hearing this Jedi Temple. I never watched it. I was like right at the beginning of the pandemic. It was, but beyond, but it was one of those. Okay, I'll get to it. I'll check it out, but I never did. And so I thought that was, but Kellen Bach was, as far as a character, and like this Jedi Temple Academy challenge show, he was a teacher, and it makes sense that if you're going to have this type of teacher character in this out of universe thing, then if you're going to make him canon in universe, that he would be there at the academy, at the Jedi Temple when Order 66 was carried out, and protecting the foundlings. And I just love it how everybody thought it was some other person that saved Grogu, but we get Jar Jar.
Right. Just like what we were talking about before in terms of the convert episode, having that curveball, I find it interesting, the placement of the flashback. And it was so unexpected, because and maybe I'm right now coming off of The Last of Us, just conditioned to have a flashback at the beginning of the episode. Not right in the middle. But it was unexpected, and then to have it mirror the ending scene with Bo-Katan, you're just like, okay. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know entirely what it means, but then again, throughout the last 4 episodes, Bo-Katan is the wild card.
Yep.
Where you're constantly, the wheels are turning. But there's something about her character in particular where you're just still like, I don't know what your play is. It's very hard to read, which is great because I think so much about this show can get very typical. That now they have a character where viewers are constantly like, yeah, I don't know what her angle is. Like, she's just blending in right now, but clearly with this whole Nithasor thing, she is still putting together her overall plan. Because I think, to go back to our conversation about the season premiere, she still is not over the black saber.
No, she's not.
No. And I mean, at the same time, to go back to The Last of Us, we got Papa Pedro, okay? He's not going full Joel on this, but he is making some bad fatherhood mistakes, okay? You can't be the dad who pushes the kid to play when he doesn't want to. Like, all I could think is just like, man, Grogu is like, I thought it was just going to be you and I.
Yeah. No, I got sports dad here. Like, come on, kid.
Yeah. Like, show him that my kid is the best.
Sucker. Yeah. I need the meme, or I need a card. Someone to do some art of like Mando being a soccer dad, in the stands.
Yeah.
There.
It's weird because I loved how much we actually got to see them and what that relationship is now, in comparison to where it started. But it also was so bittersweet because all I could think about was like, did we miss the scene where there was a conversation about how you were going to make him into a Mandalorian? Like, did you even ask the kid?
Yeah, well, I guess that goes. I know before we started recording, I was like, now that we're into season 3 and getting a little bit of distance from Mando 2.5, it's like, could they have like put those stories as a sort of kickoff for just the 3rd season as a whole,
right?
And because because Din gave him the choice. Well, Luke gave him the choice whenever, when Din brought him the mithril. I'm just gonna call it that because the little Mando armor and the lightsaber, Yoda's lightsaber, and he chose. Grogu chose to go back to Din, and so I think the seeds were planted there for him to. Because ultimately, I guess. Given that we know that this, Tar Vizsla back in the day was the blend of a Mandalorian and Jedi and compassionate dark saber and all that stuff. I think they're fast forward modern day. I think that's what their Grogu's ultimate path is probably going to be. So I think, but to your point, I think Den is being a little impatient and pushing him when he's not ready. At least for the Mando arts.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that Grogu went back to Din.
Yeah.
I understand that was the choice. And I do see how he is kind of like he's a kid. He's like, "Oh, Dad." Like, he's still, we don't know how old he is. He's probably older than Mando for all we know.
Yeah.
But still, it's just this idea of like, I'm idolizing this person. I want to be like them. But the more I become them, suddenly I'm like, do I? Because I think there is this weird where Mando unknowingly is kind of pushing a Jedi to become a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And Grogu doesn't know. I mean, he clearly has PTSD still.
Oh yeah.
He has a lot of emotions. I found it. I'm glad we're finally bringing up him not talking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could interpret like, oh, he's just not old enough or at that age. But you can also interpret because of his PTSD, he chooses not to speak.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And I honestly, a lot of people are saying, well, we're going to end up hearing him speak. Like he's already tried to and everything. We might. But I don't want him to become a chatterbox. Like, no. All we need is those puppet eyes. Okay, that's all we need, and a squeak squawk.
Yeah, that if he, I mean, ultimately down the road, maybe, and especially since Filoni and Favreau says they have no intentions of they will.
I want to talk about that too.
Yeah, they want this series to go as long as it can go. And so there's no need to rush him to talk. I mean, that would take away the mystique and some of the charm of Grogu if he starts like spouting out stuff like Yoda and Yaddle. I mean, we don't need that right now.
No, we don't. And we don't need to rush things. However, I am not surprised when I heard that they said that, just because ever since they did Mando 2.5 or whatever you call it, it was the writing was on the wall that what we're seeing as viewers is an incomplete plan.
Well, he's already written season 4.
He can. Well, then there is a plan.
Yeah, there's a plan. I just think I think what he meant was I think there's a plan, but I don't think. I guess it's different from the movie trilogies where you had, A, B, C.
I'm not talking about the movie trilogy.
No. I'm just saying that
coming off of The Last of Us, Will, there was a clear arc.
Yeah. Well, this is arc. I mean, to your point, it is like we've seen in these last, 4 episodes. They're like threads. I don't know if but there's no arc.
Yeah, it's weird because
but
you see the threads, and especially now that it's becoming more clear with Pershing and the cloning, that they're as much as they're focused on this story about Din and Grogu and Bo-Katan, they also are in the background going to be doing some serious lore, filling in gaps and pieces to lead up to the new trilogy. Well, maybe not go that far in the future.
Oh, but yeah, I think they are. I think it will. I mean, I think they are. Yeah, they're leading they're basically filling in that gap in history. Sort of like how Rebels and Obi-Wan and Clone Wars and all that stuff filled in that period before Battle of Yavin. This Mandalorian and and I guess some of the other shows coming from Ashoka and others are going to be filling in this period that leads to the First Order.
Right. So we're going to see young Ben Skywalker.
We probably will.
Interesting. Who would you cast? And anyway, yeah. I just, even if he's written season 4 and everything, to me, it just seems like we're wandering. Yeah, we're doing a lot of wandering, and I'm not a wanderer. Okay, I like to be surprised by my destination. Yeah, but I like to feel like there is a path. And and this is a clear setup for you to be like, well, this is the way.
This is the way. And the way I
don't think there is a way.
There is a way. And actually, I was going to soften my thread. I was going to soften it a bit when I was saying there's no arc. I think there is. I think, Andor, there's multiple arcs. There's the arc of there's the arc of Bo-Katan, her redemption arc from going from her family ruling Mandalore her.
I know
So
that like each character has their arc.
So I think there's like I don't know if there's like, and in what you were saying earlier, maybe the bigger overarching arc is we are just the purpose. One of the arcs or themes of the show. I'm getting there.
Oh, I'm just gonna say, and then I'll let you go. Yeah. But there's a listener out there who has started a drinking game for how many times you say arc.
Yeah.
This
is the way. So the theme here is to diversify my words. The theme is leading us to the next trilogy, the final trilogy, and that's all. And I will tighten that all up. So don't worry.
So it's a bridge arc.
Yeah.
It's an arc bridge. Oh my god.
Yeah. This is the way.
Oh man. It's definitely Noah's Ark.
Well, at least we're not going to the Ark of the Covenant, like like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh yeah. The Raiders are all good. How many arcs will it take to build one arc? Oh wow. All right. Well, speaking about arcs, another great one that we've seen in recent history, House of Dragon, which all I thought when they brought the birds, first of all, I thought they were dragons. And so my initial rundown note was, okay, I guess Mandalorian is going to become, House of Mandalorian will become House of Dragon now.
Yeah.
Get it? Okay. They are building, the Forager is going to build an Iron Throne. she's gonna build a miniature one, and then Grogu gets to sit on it. Okay.
Yeah, well, every episode except, last one didn't, but so far the armorer has built something. That forge is like working overtime, so it's only a matter of time if we get an Iron Throne, and now Bo-Katan's going to have to get a new one because her castle was blown up on her planet.
It's just they're just going to take all of their blasters. Like how the Iron Throne has all of the swords, like just a throne of blasters.
that would be so dope.
Like, come on, this can happen, people.
It can happen.
Just House of Dragon. Like, we got Succession coming back. I know I'm going to drop Succession references next week. So yeah. Anyways, I think that is it for the arc of our summer.
Well played. This is the way.
On that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me and all my crazy arcs at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK on Twitter.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.